He carved a cross. In the evening, he sat alone on a high hill, an equidistant distance from Mount Calvary. In the evening, the sun had set far below the horizon. Dew spread everywhere, making everything in front of him look dark. As usual, he was overwhelmed with sadness, pain, and confusion. His eyes were wet. He was Sigiro Tarafat from Syria, about 50 years old. When he arrived in Nazareth from a small town in Syria, Nazareth, a small town in Galilee, he was about 15 years old. On one side was the Jordan River, and on the other side were mountains. There were many oak trees. It was a town with more poor Jewish houses than rich ones. Because it was outside the city, there were many craftsmen. There were a few houses paved with stones. In this house was the house of Joseph, a carpenter. Joseph often worked with wood by piling pieces of wood, strips, etc. in the yard. He was a calm person, spoke softly, and always looked at others with respect. He even called his little children father and son. He was the kind of person who went there and worked without saying that he wanted to please someone. Mary was his wife. She was also a calm person, always speaking in Iladani. The couple had only one son, Jesus. He adopted the qualities of his parents. The family was God-fearing, socially aware, and lived on the streets of the craftsmen of Nazareth. One day, our protagonist, Zikiro Tarafat, visited Joseph's house. Zikiro, unable to stop his stepmother and his alien siblings from quarreling, joined the camel trade. There he served the camels and their owners. Bored with this work, he came upon the Nazareth highway on his way and deliberately avoided it. The camel cart moved forward. Zikiro sat on a stone by the side of the road. The sunlight that fell on his scalp melted behind the desert into a ball. As the boy sat wondering what to do next, a master dragged a log on a donkey from a nearby forest. The donkey did not pull the log. The master was doing his job of pulling it from the front and pushing it, but it was difficult for him. Zikiro, who could not see his hardship, got up and broke the trunk of a date palm tree on the other side of the road and began to beat the donkey from behind. Suddenly, the donkey heard those words and came close to the craftsman for a moment. Suddenly, a boy ran from outside the house and shouted, "Mother, father is here." The boy stole Zikiro's heart. Zikiro is in that house. I will tell you about carpentry. Joseph said that he will teach you how to carve a yoke cart, its cart, how to make doors and windows for a newly built house, chairs for people to sit on, sofas for children to sleep on, cradles for children to carry, and three-wheeled wooden carts to walk on. Along with these words, he said one more thing: you will never be bored in this house, because our Jesus is there to work and play with you. Zikiro was glad that he had finally found a home. And the boy from that house thought of more than the cafeteria. He felt that this was even more important than before: family. He was like a tree with wide branches, the master of that house, providing shade and shelter for those who came. His son, Zikiro, who determined his character after him, saw that his godliness, his concern for the community, and his spirit of service were all there. Over the years, a great deal of water flowed into the Jordan River. He learned what he had to learn in the house of Joseph the carpenter, cutting it out. He learned hundreds of jobs, such as cutting with a saw, sawing trees, hammering nails, Zikiro, plowing, yokes, cradles, chairs, beds, doors, and windows. Only 2 of them were good at carpentry. In the meantime, the boy named Jesus went outside to help his father with the housework. He went to the temple. He talked to the priest. He comforted the suffering, the poor, the helpless, the weak. Like a hand standing at the crossroads of the 4 roads, he tried to show me the way, not that way, but this way. His parents were proud of him, satisfied. Even Zikiro, Joseph's assistant, accepted me. Not only in Nazareth, but also in Bethlehem, Jerusalem. Going everywhere and talking about people made Zikiro happy. In the meantime, an accident happened. The carpenter Joseph was sick for a few days, and he did not wake up again. He took his last breath while Mary and his son stood side by side. The son hugged his mother and comforted him. The house of Joseph of Nazareth surrendered to silence. Zikiro told Mary that he would build his own house and move the equipment from Joseph's house there. A new carpenter's house opened there. Zikiro built a good reputation. One day a Roman general came to the courtyard of Jizero. "Look," Don't you know that thieves and liars are crucified? Do you know? Jigero paused to think. He remembered something Joseph had said to him. His name was Sigero. He always carved things that brought joy and comfort to people. Instead of yokes, plows, play cars, and cradles, a bad man came and asked to carve 2 crosses. Think about it. We shouldn't always stand for the enthusiasm of life, but we shouldn't stand for things that are against it. This suited Jigero as well. As Joseph said, he continued his work, but this time the Roman general was from Zab. When Jigero remained silent, the officer raised his voice slightly and asked, "What will not work for us?" Jigero threatened to comply. He also went to the forest and brought a piece of wood. The knot was cut and carved. In Nazareth, there was darkness. People said that Jesus, the son of Joseph, was conspiring against the government, the priests, the thieves, and the liars. One day, the Roman soldiers came and took the cross and the long piece of wood that he had carved. Not long after, news came that they were carrying these pieces of wood on Jesus's shoulders to Calvary Hill. He ran to God with them. Yes, Jesus was carrying the piece of wood and walking to Calvary. They beat him and beat him. His clothes were torn, sweat was on his forehead. His mother followed her son and grabbed Mary's breast. There were other women on the street. Alas, there were sinners and people who mocked Jesus. Jigero rushed into the crowd, not knowing what to do. He started following Jesus in great pain. Jezavannah was stopped at a prearranged place. They took the piece of wood off his shoulders, put it together, and placed Jesus on this cross-shaped tree. And he began nailing his hands and feet. And Jigero shouted, "Bob, I did not carve this cross for him. No, no, don't hit me with this truth. Don't hit me." Someone dragged him away from the group and spilled it. He fell on a rock and hit his chest. Jigero's attitude continues to this day. On the rock on Calvary Hill, where Jigero sits wiping away tears, darkness slowly descends over Nazareth.